Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Conscious Parenting. No. Conscious Conversations in Parenting or Human Life.
Either way.
Welcome back. And if it's your first time here, welcome. We're on episode 40 in or 40. No, we're on episode 41. And the conversation today is going to be talking about the concept of no big deal. And I'm really excited to dive into that. That's something I really is a foundation of a lot of what I teach. And so I'm just excited to dive into that. But first, I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Angie. I'm the creator of Journey to Soul. And what I do is I help women, I support women, I gather women, I support women in creating a life that they love. And a really big part of that mission of my heart, is to share my experiences. Because the reason why I want to support women in that is because I was building a life that I thought I would love, and then I didn't love it. I had a great life, but I didn't love it inside. I didn't love it. And so it's become a mission to create a life that I love, and I do love my life now. And so, how do you get that message out to people is by having conscious conversations, by sharing the experiences, by, busting the myths that are out there, because there's so much programming and so many myths. And so I feel like bringing these conversations and having these conversations with other people that are considering this and trying to consciously parent and break paradigms and break myths, and you know what I mean? I think it's so valuable to us, not just me, to each of us in these conversations, but to everyone, to the world. I think it's a big service to the world when we start speaking our truths about this. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm doing this, and that's why I love doing this. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Natalie.
Thank you, Angie. Uh, I, I say this every time. I love these conversations, and to me, um, the um, the way I really awaken is by sharing my experiences, and by sharing my knowledge, however that looks like, right? And it looks different in each area of my life. Um, being present and coaching people at work, having these super amazing deep level conversations with Angie and Julie and everyone watching, um, and being present with my family and implementing the tools that I'm learning as I'm interacting with my family and as I'm interacting throughout my day with different people. And it just, the stuff is so valuable, and I find it's really important to also talk about it in like a real life situation, and to share our experiences and just be very real about it, and share what our struggles are, what our wins are, because it brings so much value, and it reaffirms it in you, right?
Yeah.
And it makes you, and I find also with a lot of these conscious conversations, is it reminds us of things that are deep inside of our hearts. And yeah, so as you're listening to this, guys, as you're joining in the conversation, if something rings true to you, then it's meant to ring true to you, right? And if some things you don't understand or you don't really agree with, then that's okay. Like, just leave it aside, because that message is not meant for you, right? So just focus on what rings true to you and share your experiences, because it really does open that next doorway into your consciousness.
Such a valuable point. And sometimes people are here, maybe they're here to share their experience because their perspective is different than what we're presenting. We
Yes.
can only present to
Yeah.
you what our experience is, right? That's all we can present to you. We don't, pretend to know other people's experiences. How we know is when you share it with us. And we all awaken and we all become aware. And it's beautiful. I love that you
It
said that.
is.
And again, our intro is totally different every time. Love it. So let's dive into
Yeah.
this topic of no big deal. So I brought this topic forward, and it's because I do a lot of work in busting the ego, like, not busting it in a bad way. The ego isn't bad, right? But really bringing and highlighting awareness that the ego might be running the show in your life. And when the ego is running the show in your life, it's not working for your highest good, right? It doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just not working for your highest good. And there might be a much more graceful, easier path, right? And so, one of the base teachings of these Tibetan Buddhist teachings that I share and that I'm passionate about, not just share, I practice them in my own life, is no big deal. No big deal. And so when we begin to touch our experiences with that attitude of it's no big deal, and this includes we're here, we live in a duality experience, polarity, right? And so we have the full spectrum of emotions, ones that don't feel good at all and ones that feel great. And the ego, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how the ego operates. The ego likes to attach stories to our experiences. And so whether they feel great or whether they feel awful, it's doing the same thing on both ends. The ego is attaching story. And so no big deal is a concept and an understanding that we are cultivating an attitude of no big deal, meaning not meaning that we don't get excited at life and not meaning that we don't get angry at life. We just take a stance of no big deal. We don't need to attach to it. We feel the feelings, we engage in the feelings in the present moment. So if you think about, we're talking about being parents, right? You engage in this beautiful moment with your family member, someone in your family, your child or something, and you feel it, you're happy about it, but you let go, you unhook, and you don't make it a big deal. And I know sometimes what I come into when we were exploring the teaching, right? Is like it can come across as like, well, then what am I supposed to be like? I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I don't care about my kid. Like, no, you're just meant to be present in that moment with them and feel these experiences. But what happens is, especially when something feels really good in our experience with our family, we hook to it. We take pictures, we want to hold on to that memory, and this is how suffering is created. This is the Buddhist like teachings. Like it's helping us shine light on where we are creating suffering when we don't need to have suffering. And so that hooking that we do, that holding on to a past moment that's now past, it creates suffering. And so when we cultivate an attitude of no big deal, everything is no big deal, right? It helps us to roll with the impermanence of life. That's the one thing that's guaranteed, guys, in this life, impermanence. Everything is moving. Energy is always moving. It doesn't stay still. We stay still, but the energy continues to move and then we suffer. And so I think it's a really valuable conversation and a really valuable thing to explore in how do you make no big deal, how and even for me to contemplate in my own life because I really don't make a big deal of things in some areas of my life, maybe not in others.
Mm, yeah. I love how you said a moment ago about the impermanence of life
Mm,
and how everything's always moving except us because we can choose to stay still, right? We can choose to stay present while the energies are
moving.
moving all around us. We can be that
That's
center in
right.
the storm.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, making things, yeah, having the mindset of not a big deal. Like Angie said, it's not. I don't. It's staying more neutral instead of being on like this crazy ass roller coaster ride of I'm so happy, oh my god, I'm so excited, we're going to the water park, like hyperness, and then like oh my god, the kids are arguing and like crashing instead of like this constant roller coaster of emotions. We're trying to get it more
Yeah.
like a gentle wave, right? We're trying to stay more neutral, near like that zero point, that neutrality of And that to me is no big deal, right? Whether it's something super positive or something that is more on the negative side that doesn't feel as good. Um, really learning, and this is a skill. To me, this feels like a physical skill as well as emotional, because emotion is the mind and the body. So when you feel, really excited, and it's like your whole skin's like, like electrical. That's that excited emotion that your body is sensing. And same thing, like when you're really sad or you're really disappointed, that like thinking feeling in your stomach, well, that's that disappointment that your body is sensing. Um, so to me, exercising this Buddhist practice of it's no big deal, it's also physical, right? We also have to bring attention to where are we feeling it when we feel really excited. And maybe it's all in your body, right?
Mhm.
So just be aware of that, right? And don't like just notice it. Don't have a conversation about it. Be like, oh, I feel it more like
And
my
that's
left
what
foot.
no big
Just
deal is too. Yeah, not making a big
yeah,
deal out of it in your head
yeah,
too.
no,
Like it's
exactly.
not a big deal that it's happening. It's very normal that it's happening. I like what you
Yeah.
said about staying still. Like we're the ones that get to stay still, but it has to be a conscious choice. And so when we choose to stay still, right, it helps us in cultivating an attitude of no big deal. Because if we're staying still and the energy can move through us, and we stay grounded. Because when you're still, you're grounded.
Hmm.
And when you're grounded, that means the energy, whatever polarity it is, can move through us. And we can just notice and not make a big deal of it as it, because the stories are a big deal. That's what the stories of the mind, of the ego, that's the ego and the mind making a big deal out of the thing.
Yeah, adding on to the story,
You're adding on
right?
to the
Adding
experience.
fuel to the fire.
Mhm.
And yes, so one way, one method to do this is, like I have said, like just notice where you're feeling it in your body, and also recognize the programming. And Angie, Julie, and I were talking about this quickly the other day. Of we always we have this deep programming, and it's so deep that we think it's actually normal, that we feel we attach a feeling, so like sadness, to the physical situation that's occurring, right?
That's
And
the
it's so
attachment.
deeply programmed. And if you guys, when this insight first came to me, I'm like, well, obviously, like a situation would make me sad. Like, obviously, I would attach to that. I was like arguing with like the download, right? I'm like, but then it's true. But then the memory came back to me of, um, I had a vision once, and I know I shared this with Angie, of I could literally see an energetic wave. Just it was kind of like a tidal wave, but it was non-physical, but it was, oh sorry, my hands like right in front of the camera, um moving through like my yard and like the neighbor's yard. It just stretched on to the horizon. It was just moving like at a consistent slow pace. And that's the energetic wave that we feel. So sometimes like everybody seems to have like a grumpy day in the house. Well, that's just a wave that's moving
Coming
through.
through.
You're talking to someone on the phone, it's like everybody's having such a shitty day. It's like, well, on the one part of it is, it's just a it's just a wave of energy, guys.
It's
So,
just
and
like
we
the
feel
moon
that
provides a
on,
wave of energy too. Like the full
yeah,
moon provides a wave of energy for the whole collective.
yeah, yeah. So with that understanding, or with that visual now, so it's a non-physical wave that's moving through this plane, this physical plane. And like, I mean, think of it as wind, if you want, if that helps. So it's completely like we can actually unhook that feeling, that emotion, from the physical situation that's surrounding us. If we're standing in the kitchen and there's dishes on the counter, maybe people haven't emptied out the dishwasher, they're just like picking like one clean plate at a time, you know. So why? And ask yourself this, why am I associating
This
objects on
feeling.
objects? Because that's literally all it is the kitchen. Like whether or not it's dirty, there's objects on objects, maybe on objects. Why am I associating this emotional wave that my physical body is sensing to the
That's the,
manifestation that's around me, to the kitchen? What does that have to do with any? They're not related, but we are so deep. Like from day one, we are told
we attached this to that.
so automatically that we don't even, that this may even seem like incomprehensible to some people.
Even as you're saying
And
it, because like I
it
had
took
the
me a
aha.
few minutes. It took me a few moments, like a good while, because like I said, I was like arguing. I'm like, no, and then it kept
That's
like doop doop, and I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, and then I started like talking about and like just sitting more with that knowledge, with that download, and I'm like, oh yeah, we do that, but we do it to such like it's so deeply ingrained that it's very difficult to see through that veil, right?
yeah.
So I mean, I think that's a huge portion of, um, don't make things a big deal, right? Understand that we don't have to like
It's not
glue
a
the
big deal.
feeling to
It's
the
not the
physical
same.
reality.
Yeah, it's
Just
not actually
unhook
the
it.
same. I like how you said that.
Once
Like
you
they
unhook it,
actually
there's
have
no big
nothing to
deal.
they have nothing to do with each other. Like I like that you
No,
said that. They don't actually have anything to do with each other. But
it's
we
two
are
different
taught that.
worlds.
I'm even going to tell you that in trauma treatment, I was taught that too. That the emotion, no, I wasn't really taught that it was attached to a situation, but here's what I'm taught. I'm taught that the emotion is coming up because of a thought that I've had. But the thought is attached directly to a situation. That's what treatment taught me. And so it's like so the like I'm getting even deeper in this like because Natalie brought this to us and it was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, and I felt the little resistance to it too. And it was like it's like, oh no, but you're absolutely right. And now as I hear you say it, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. And I'm realizing that programming, like in the systems that were created to treat mental health, right? We are literally
Mm,
taught that the emotion comes because of a thought. That's why if you change the thought, you can change the emotion. And it comes because of a thought, but the thought has to do with an outside situation. And that's actually what we
mm-hmm.
do is we look at why did the thought come up because it's connected to an outside situation.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I mean, therapy and mental health work and everything is really important, guys. We're not
Yeah.
shunning that at all. I
No,
mean,
it
we,
saved
my
my life.
family goes to therapy. Yeah, yeah, but it can only go so deep
Yes, that's
right now.
exactly it.
And I mean, so I mean, my therapist is freaking awesome. Um, and and so some of them are dipping their toes more into awareness and consciousness and things like that. But understand that these systems, um, these coaching systems, these healing systems are based in a 3D world,
Yeah,
so they can only go so deep, right?
yeah,
um, just like things like science and stuff, they can only prove so much, they can only go so deep, because at one point the physical tools can't reach the non-physical stuff. So what Angie said of, you feel an emotion because of a thought that occurred. Yeah, yes, that's absolutely true. And that
yeah,
is very, very helpful. But here we go, we dive deeper, right? We're like, okay, yes, that's true, but let's go deeper now, because
yeah,
that has gotten us to this doorway. And now this other doorway is opening. These other doorways, of knowledge, of wisdom, are opening to us, right? So again, detaching that feeling from that physical environment, I mean, is so huge, because it's two different worlds. It's literally two different worlds, but our human body is so freaking amazing, guys, that we can navigate the physical and the non-physical at the same time.
yeah.
But because this
That's
isn't taught, because this isn't even realized by a good chunk of the population, it's not taught. If we were taught this from day one, well, we wouldn't be we wouldn't be having
we
completely
wouldn't.
different
This wouldn't
conversations.
even. Yeah, yeah. This wouldn't even be a thing. Yeah,
Yeah, but
And I'm
yeah,
see and
so I
realizing
mean,
too, like we can also disconnect a thought when we become aware of a thought, we can disconnect the thought from the situation too.
yes,
Because
yeah,
the thought,
exactly.
that's actually part of the teachings too. Like the thought comes out of the emptiness, it just comes out of nowhere. And you can
Hmm.
watch it go back, to nowhere if you unhook from it, if you
Yeah,
don't make a big deal out of the thought that comes up.
yeah.
And if I think about it, like I'm contemplating my own, like I am a very neutral person, and that, because I don't make a big deal out of things, and people have told me this. I've had friends that like they tell me this big crazy story that happened to them, and I don't react. I don't react because I
Mm,
accept them as they are. I did like that's okay. That's the story that you
yeah.
have. And most people react, let's say, like, you know what I mean? 90% of the people they tell are like, "Oh my God," and they make a big deal.
Ah,
And so they
yes,
feed the big deal. They feed the ego,
yes,
right? And
yes.
and I don't. I don't. I just say, "Oh, wow." And I might just say like, "Well, how did you feel?" I'll just say things like that. And then they get like this is a response I get a lot. And they get like, "Did you hear what I said?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I heard you." Like, like and I'll even kind of say like, "Yeah, I get it. So and so did this and you did that. Yeah, I get it." And then they'll just kind of be like, "Oh." And then it fizzles out, and that's what happens, and I
Yes,
observe that experience, it fizzles out because the ego doesn't have anyone feeding it, feeding the big deal.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I love how you said that because when we're being neutral, guys, when we're practicing that level of neutrality, when we um when we don't feed the ego, when we don't make a big deal out of things, well, what is that? We're being present.
Yes.
We're being present with the situation. We're being present with that person, especially when there's another person involved. When we're present, then their pain body, their ego, their story has nothing to feed it,
Yeah.
right? Because you're just present. You're just there.
You're present, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And then
and
it
you're
fizzles
present in
out. I
love,
love how
you're
you said
present
that. It
in your
fizzles
light,
out.
and you're present in your light
Yeah.
and your love. Like, when you're present, your light and your love are there, and and so exactly, the pain body, it fizzles out. Whatever that energy is, whatever that big deal energy is, will fizzle out. And it's the same thing with a thought. A thought pops up in your head and, here's an example of making a big deal. It's like I think about, maybe a random thought pops into my head, that my husband, will get hurt or something. And I happen to be mad at him at that moment. And here's where I don't make a big deal. I don't start thinking, "Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why would I have a thought like that? Oh my God, I don't want my husband to be hurt. Oh my God, oh my God." You're now suffering. You're now suffering.
Yes.
Me, I'm just like, "Oh wow, that's a random thought. I don't want that one." And I just let it go, you know? It's like, "Oh God,
Yeah.
no, I don't want." And sometimes I have a
Yeah.
moment where I'm like, "Oh, thinking about that?"
Yeah, well, you cringe, right? And that's okay. But I
That's okay.
mean, and there's all these different levels of no big deal, right? Because at
Yes.
first maybe you cringe, but then you stop the inner dialogue,
Yes.
right? And then maybe at another point in your time in your life situation, maybe you get to the point where you simply watch the thought and you just watch the mind kind of going off on a rant of whatever it's ranting about your husband.
Yeah.
You just sit back and you watch and you literally don't engage, and then it feels like the
That's
volume
it.
just gets like turned down to
Yeah.
like almost nothing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
still struggle
yeah.
with this with my kids. Like this is why I brought this conversation forward was because
Mm,
I see that my daughter, my 11-year-old daughter, she makes a big deal out of everything. Everything's a big deal. But it is in her 11-year-old brain. Everything's a big deal. You know what I mean? Because they're experiencing this life, this crazy life, and everything feels like a big deal to them, right? And I realized I was feeding it because I would then make a big deal out of her reaction, her
yes,
big
we make a
deal.
big deal. out of people's, sorry, I have like this weird shadow. We make a big deal out of people making a big deal out of it, right?
Yes. Yes. And then there's all this chaos and suffering and crunchiness
Yeah.
and discomfort and shame and guilt and all these things rise up, right? And it's like, and it's just bringing, I just want to shine awareness on how a big deal is being made. You know what I mean? That maybe somebody else is making a big deal of something, we could stop it. Like, you said this is layered. It's very layered. You can use the no big deal attitude in all kinds of ways and at all phases of whatever's unfolding.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can make a big deal for a little while and then suddenly be like, you know what? This is not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Like not engage. I mean, the first step for me was really not engaging
Yeah.
in other people's conversations and other people's drama. And
Yeah.
sometimes it seems like tossing a cold bucket of water on someone because it's such, sometimes it's gradual, but sometimes it's just an abrupt like knowing, like an
Yeah.
awareness of yourself of like, oh my God, like I'm bitching about someone bitching.
Yes.
Or I'm bitching
Yes.
to someone because they're bitching about something else. And sometimes it's such an abrupt, like in your face awareness that you
Like you
just
stop.
stop. And it's like your
Yes.
personality, your habit of that changes instantly. And it's
Yes.
normal that this happens and it's normal that it doesn't happen, guys. So either way, it's
Yes.
okay.
Nothing's wrong. Yeah,
But
nothing's wrong.
yeah, but I mean that's a big first step is not making a big deal externally, just not engaging, right?
Yes.
And then because once you like slow down your external communication and your external noise that you're tossing in the world, then you start to realize, like, hey, my thoughts are
Mhm.
still loud though. So I'm not bitching externally, but
But
I'm
I'm
still
left with
going
it in
off on a
here.
tangent
Yes.
in here, right?
Yes. But now
And
we're
you're just
aware of it because
so,
we're not out
yeah,
here doing this.
yes, because the external is all
A reflection.
um, a, a distraction. Yes, thank you to what's going on in here. So once we start tuning down the noise in the outside world,
We just
then we're
unplug
less
ourselves.
distracted.
We
Yeah,
unplug
and then
ourselves from it.
yeah, yeah, and then once you start not making a big deal out of it inside your head, like once your thoughts really start to calm down to like a really quiet level to more of that neutral,
Yeah.
gentle wave, um, then it all starts to quiet down externally with other
There.
people.
It
Yeah.
really
Yeah,
does.
it's magical as fuck, guys. And like I can't explain it,
You just
but
have to
it's
experience
wild
it.
because we all there's this programming of I need to fix things by like jumping in and making a big deal out of things to
Yes.
fix the thing. And it's like, no,
And
because
I'll even say
by
making a big deal. I'm going to give a small example of even just making like there's so many layers. I like that you said this because there are so many layers to uncovering where I make a big deal. And one of the things I was making a big deal out of all the time was eating, the kids eating and trying to manage what they eat. And if they weren't hungry, and this just happened tonight actually, Leah didn't want to, well, no, okay, that's a judgment. She ate her food and then I went to make her veggies later, right? Like I didn't make it right away with her dinner and then I went to cut her and I asked her if she wanted snap peas or cucumber and she said my tummy doesn't feel well. And my head went immediately to she's making an excuse so she doesn't have to eat the veggies. And then I remember, but that's me making a big deal out of her just saying, you know what I mean? I'm making a big deal. And I was like, I stopped and I was like, and I said it out loud to my mom. I was like, you know what? Maybe she really does have a sore tummy. I looked at her and I was
yeah,
like,
good
my
for her for
mind is thinking,
recognizing that and listening to her body.
yes. And
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'm just going to accept that. And I kind of talked myself through this stuff, right? And I look at
Yeah.
my mom and I'm like, I'm going to accept what she just said to me. And I'm not going to go with this thought that says she just wants to get out of eating veggies. Because the truth is, she eats her veggies usually. So, and there has been a time where she has thrown up and I was like getting all mad about her. I was making a big deal. So there's suffering. And so there was no suffering. I just put the veggies back in the fridge and I just went about my thing. And well, no, I went and asked her if she needed anything for her tummy. And she said, no, I think I'm just going to drink some water. I was like, okay, and I went on with my night.
Yeah.
It could have been, it would have been in the past a much bigger deal, a much bigger drama.
Yeah.
It would have
Yeah.
taken time and energy. It would have had some, I would have made all kinds of assumptions and I would have expressed that to her and she wouldn't have
Mhm.
felt heard, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just the power of becoming aware that we make big deals of things.
Yeah. That's such a powerful example,
Mm.
Angie, and it's simple. And this is what I really want to like get people to understand
Simple.
is it's all simple.
Yeah,
It's all meant to be simple. The reason why it's not simple is because our mind makes it a big deal, right? And we're supposed to implement these things in simple things like this, like an interaction that Angie had with her daughter about some food. It doesn't have to be like, it's like you're, I don't know, like a scene about like, I don't know, the Messiah in the Bible and like, multiplying the fish and everything. No, no, no. It's
no,
literally just day-to-day interactions. This is actually how we move ourselves into those higher vibrations. That's how we
yes,
really learn to anchor our light and to anchor these tools that we gave ourselves. Like we gave ourselves these gifts, guys, of
that's
just
right.
presence and these conversations. And we're meant to use them in everyday conversations.
That's
We're
right.
meant to remind ourselves to right now, like get centered, right?
And that's it.
When we're tidying up, or when we're tossing crumbs on the ground, like I'm sitting at my desk. Just implement these tools. It's all meant to be simple, and that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We can just choose to not make a big deal out of the cup that got left in the living room.
Yeah.
We could choose to not make a big deal out of that and just
Mhm.
either choose to ask the person to move it or choose yourself to take it to the kitchen.
Yeah. Or just
That's right. Or ignore
ignore
it.
it. Leave it. Maybe the cup wants to be there, right?
Yeah. Maybe it needs to be there. Who knows?
Right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We could
Yeah.
just reduce a lot of suffering. So I think like this is a great conversation. And it's just, shining light on this is something the ego does. This is something the mind does. It's
Hmm.
okay, but can you begin to be aware of it,
Yeah.
right? And choose not to engage. So,
Hmm.
yeah, thank you. That was a great conversation. I love you.
Yeah.
If you like the video, please like this video, share it with anyone, and share your own perspectives of this and what does a big deal mean to you, because there might be other perspectives of what a big deal is, right? Because I think it exists. Our thoughts are everywhere with us all the time, all day long, like, making a big deal out of everything. So I would love to hear anybody else's thoughts on this. And if you do like these videos, do subscribe, like, hit the notification bell. Oh my goodness, can't think. To see our premieres every Tuesday to get notification of that. And if you want to find out more about us or Julie, our information's in the description box below too. But thank you so much for joining us, and we do hope that you'll join us again in a future video. Thank you, Natalie.
Thanks, Angie. Bye.
Bye.